Indo Chino is the world's largest made-to-measure menswear brand. They make suits, shirts, coats, and more. And everything is made to your exact measurement for a great fit. Plus, you get to personalize all the details, including your lapel, lining, and your own monogram. They have tons of things to choose from. You want a pink suit? You can get a pink suit. And speaking of pink suits, RJ Barrett's brand new collection with Indo Chino just dropped, featuring limited edition fabrics and jacket linings RJ helped pick out and design. Indo Chino's process is simple. Choose your fabric, pick your customizations, and submit your measurements. Your package will be delivered straight to your door in 2 weeks. You can get measured and design your suit at your nearest Indo Chino showroom, or you can do it yourself online at indochino.com. Right now, you can get $30 off your total purchase of $399 or more at indochino.com when entering Blue Wire at checkout. Plus, shipping is free. That's indochino.com, promo code Blue Wire for $30 off your total purchase of $390 or more. Incredible deal for made-to-measure clothing. You really have no excuse anymore to wear clothing that doesn't fit. What it do, Hardwood Knocks listeners? I am Dan Valley coming at you with my super duper, incredibly esteemed, awesome times awesome, fantabulous, spectaculario is ready for Carmelo Anthony to win MVP with the Portland Trailblazers co-host Andrew D. Bailey. Before we get started with our mailbag / injury sads / Carmelo Anthony reaction podcast, just our usual housekeeping notes. Above all else, please continue rating, reviewing, subscribing to us on iTunes. We can also be found wherever else you are getting your fantastic podcasts beyond us, although why would you need any podcast beyond us? However, iTunes is still the best way to let us know that you are out there and that you are listening. Definitely subscribe. Throw us a 5-star rating. Write whatever you want in the reviews. You can talk about Andy being able to dunk until he's going to be like age 60, I think, is maybe when he'll be able to stop dunking. Whatever you want to write, we're always reading them, but give us that 5-star rating and subscribe. If you've done all of those things, please, pretty please, with sugar on top, recommend us, retweet our promos for the podcast, shout us out on Twitter, steal people's phones, subscribe them to the Hardwood Knocks podcast, and they will thank you later. Anything you can do just as an endorsement of what we are doing around these parts. You may also follow the Hardwood Knocks podcast on Twitter at Hardwood Knocks, and then go follow Andy on Twitter at Andrew D. Bailey. I am at Dan Favale. That's Favale. The show is, not the show, but Blue Wire Pods, the network we are hosted by, and that has a great deal of other awesome podcasts. You should also follow them on Twitter as well at Blue Wire Pods. Lastly, but certainly not leastly, we shout out our sponsors for this week's podcast. This is our second of the week. You've already heard from Indo Chino. They are amazing. We are also brought to you this week by Harry's and Roman. So help us out, help them out. Throw those promo codes in there with, the websites we're going to provide you and the promo codes to come in this podcast. So shout out to all three of them. Whew. Andy, how are you doing?
I am doing wonderful. Excited to dive back in. I feel like it's been a little bit for me, so allow me to work off the rust and dive right into all these things that we have to talk about. It's been a wild at least week or so since I've been on, so I'm ready to go.
Yeah, it's a little crazy. I mean, let's just start with the Melo stuff. In the middle, look at Carmelo Anthony stealing the Knicks Mavericks thunder on Thursday night. In the middle of that game, Woj tweeted that Carmelo Anthony is signing a non-guaranteed contract with the Blazers. He's going to join Portland on its upcoming road trip. You guys will be listening to this hopefully on a Saturday. He could join the team or play with the team technically as early as then. What was your initial reaction to this?
Mild surprise, I guess. I guess it was a legit Woj bomb, which we haven't had for a while. So when I read those notifications, I'm at least like a little surprised. But then I started thinking about it. I don't think it's a particularly smart move for the Blazers, but I get it. I understand what they're doing. Zach Collins is down for a little bit. Yusuf Nurkic is already obviously hurt. They're thin up front. There's just no question about it. They traded away Myers Leonard. They've been playing Mario Hezonja heavy minutes in the front court. And I think you and I maybe even talked about how cool it would be if they played Hezonja 4 and 5 minutes. But seeing it in practice is a lot different than speculating about it before the season. They needed help inside. I'm very skeptical as to whether Melo can provide it. I wrote a quick reaction for it, as you know, it was just a small part of another bigger piece last night. And just diving into the numbers, he's been a thoroughly negative player for a few years now, and he's been away from the game for a year. I was thinking too, just think about the kind of defense you'll get from a lineup that includes Lillard, McCollum, Rodney Hood, Carmelo Anthony, and Hassan Whiteside.
And what about when those lineups like don't have like Hassan Whiteside in it, or if they don't have like if it's I don't know like Nasir Little instead of Rodney Hood?
Whiteside can help you defensively at least from time to time, but you're right, they're not always going to be able to play with him. There's the potential that Portland just gets lit up when Carmelo Anthony is on the floor. My general, final takeaway from the thing was it seems like a huge ask at this point because I feel like we've been asking it for 2 or 3 years now. But if he can abandon the long twos, focus on just being a floor spacing 4. I don't know what he can do defensively. He's just got to focus, I guess. I don't think he has the athletic ability to stay in front of people on the perimeter anymore. So, and I don't know if it's too late in his career to figure out how to be one of those strong positional defenders. You don't necessarily have to be this freak athlete to be good defensively in the NBA. If you can
shout out Joe Ingles.
Joe Ingles, great call. If you have good anticipation, if you know how to use your length, I think you can still be effective on that end. I don't know if we've ever seen that from Melo, even when he was a good athlete. So there are major question marks with this move for me. But having said all that, I kind of get why they did it.
I get why they did it too, and I go back and forth between thinking that you're overstating how, I guess, combustible the move is, and then just flat out agreeing with you. Because the thing with Carmelo Anthony now is, regardless of what you thought about his first take appearance over the summer, how self-serving it was, how deflective it was, like, he's clearly at the point where the role is not the issue anymore. He wants to be on a team. He flat out told Stephen A. Smith that. Like, it was one of the most telling quotes to me. Like, people focused in on you're going to tell me I'm not good enough to make one of the 30, 15-man rosters. And even the fact that he mentioned it in that terms, it's like, oh, maybe he's willing to play anywhere. But he also said, I want to play and I want to go and win a championship, but I also want to play. I want to get back out there on the court. I missed the game. I was away from the game for damn near a whole season. I got the opportunity to step back and grow as a person, and I deserve another shot. I just think he's ready to be in a situation where maybe he's helping the Blazers, maybe he's barely even playing, and he's not going to cause a ruckus, or he's not going to, that sense of entitlement that we saw in Oklahoma City, even in Houston a little bit, because he was so shocked that he was kind of booted from the plan, but also when they initially wanted him to come off the bench. That's not going to be an issue now. The actual issue is Carmelo Anthony's popularity. Carmelo Anthony's reputation is his baggage. And so if the Blazers don't play Carmelo Anthony, it's a story. It doesn't mean that Melo's making it a story. It's a story because it's Melo. And so you would assume that the Blazers have more of a stomach for that than the Rockets because they're signing Melo after this Houston thing. At the same time, the contract is non-guaranteed. And so that's where the worry really cakes in. As far as what he can do for them on the court, I honestly, look, you knew I was a Melo optimist when he went to Houston. Yeah. It's tough for me to maintain that here. He did adjust the types of shots he was taking. Nearly 35% of his total looks in OKC and Houston combined came as catch-and-shoot threes. And just for reference, his final season with the Knicks, only 19.6% of his shots were catch-and-shoot threes, which was a pretty high number for him. So he basically doubled that type of output. And he shot combined 36.5% on those looks, but he was terrible in Houston on them. And then you have to live with or maybe not so much anymore, you have to worry about him hijacking possessions, or like you said, those long twos. Perhaps that won't be an issue either in Portland, because Carmelo Anthony, I hesitate to say, look, this is rock bottom. Let's just say it for Carmelo Anthony. And so he'll be so desperate to fit in that I don't think functionally anything will be the issue. It's can he make the shots the Blazers want him to take? And maybe they'll even give him a little bit more freedom. They're 7th in isolation frequency this season. So maybe he will have an opportunity to work, and they are 7th, or excuse me, they're 2nd in isolation frequency. They are 2nd in isolation frequency. Sorry, everybody. They are 7th in mid-range frequency. So maybe that helps Melo a little bit too. I honestly don't know. And you mentioned him playing the 4, and that's obviously what he's going to do, and they do need a 4. Look, throw him at the 5. If you want to see him jab step or post up and your defense is going to suck anyway, put him at the 5, and maybe that's how you get him some post ups. I know that I'm aggressive when it comes to small ball units, but what are you missing out on at this point? Anthony Tolliver at the 5? Yeah, Pau Gasol's not healthy. Yusuf Nurkic isn't healthy.
Man, I forgot they had Pau Gasol for a second too.
And they have Scal, who's had some interesting minutes this season, but you could try that. And so I'm of the mind that I'm happy Melo's back in the NBA, and I hope it's a situation where even if he doesn't play well, and I'm not expecting him to play well, I hope that he's able to just fit in. And I mean that from a perspective of not just what he does in the locker room behind the scenes or how he acts. I don't think that's going to be the problem. I hope that we, the media, the fans, that we just let this play out no matter what his role is, because it would just be cool to see him finish the season on their team. And that, to me, effectively is what he's playing for to wrap my point on this up. Is he's not there to turn around the Blazers season. I don't even know that they're counting on him to be any more than a body for them in the front court. He's really just playing for the right to finish the season. And so I am very interested to see how it pans out.
Yeah, that would be cool. As others have said, I think it would be great if he could, establish himself to the point where then he can then go out on his own terms. Given the career that he's had, and that I'm probably a little bit more nitpicky of his career than most people are, but he's a legendary scorer. And I'm with you. I think it'd be really cool if it works out to the extent that, he can finish the season there. I think that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, and it's like people who think that this is like a real last chance. My whole thing here is this doesn't impact. We get so caught up in the moment, but like a player's career when it has spanned 16 years is not defined by how it ends, regardless of how rosy or shitty that ending is. And so Carmelo Anthony, like you said, I think you're right to take issue with the things that you have. There's, even in his prime, there's just complicated moments, complicated numbers. He's had a complicated career. He is, like you said, though, a legendary scorer. 19th all-time on the scoring list. Very few players have averaged over 24 points per game for their career with his still unimpressive true shooting percentage, but to be one of fewer than 15 players to reach those benchmarks is a big deal. 6 All-NBA teams. He's going to be a first ballot All-Famer. Nothing in Oklahoma City, Houston, or now Portland is going to change that.
Agreed.
Guys are terrible at taking care of their health. Whether it's a knee injury, bad back, or something worse, guys are usually more comfortable rubbing some dirt on it than seeing a doctor. I'm guilty of it myself. I dislocated my shoulder just a few months ago. After it popped back in, rather than seeking immediate medical attention, I just wanted to continue about my daily life, deal with the pain, and hope that it would eventually get better without really doing anything to rest it or make sure that it gave me proper range of motion. The same is true for erectile dysfunction. Studies show 70% of guys who experience ED don't get treated for it. Thankfully, Roman created an easy way to chat with a doctor online. With Roman, you get medical care for ED, if appropriate, from the comfort and privacy of your own home. You can handle everything online in a convenient, discreet manner. Getting started is simple. Just go to getroman.com/bluewire and complete an online visit. If your doctor decides that treatment would be appropriate, they can prescribe genuine medication that can be delivered in discreet packaging right to your door with free 2-day shipping. Guys, go talk to the doctor. Erectile dysfunction can be tough to tackle, but it's really important to get checked out. With Roman, it's easy to get connected to a doctor. Just go to getroman.com/bluewire to get a free online visit and free 2-day shipping. That's getroman.com/bluewire for a free visit to get started. getroman.com/bluewire. Humans have been shaving for thousands of years. During that time, the secret to a great shave hasn't changed much. The ancient Greeks didn't need flex balls, they didn't need heated handles, and neither do you. That's why Harry's doesn't overcharge you to add gimmicky features to their razors. They focus on delivering what actually matters. Sharp, durable blades at a fair price. I love Harry's because it gives me the closest shave ever with an easy glide, and the razors come at a low price. Do us a favor. Check out harrys.com/bluewire for your free trial today. Harry's is a return to the essential. Quality, durable blades at a fair price. It comes out to just $2 per blade. Harry's is also just super convenient. Blade refills are shipped right to your house when you sign up for a subscription. And there's no risk for trying them out. If you don't love your shave, let them know and they'll give you a full refund. Listeners of Hardwood Knocks can redeem their Harry's trial set at harrys.com/bluewire. You'll get a weighted ergonomic handle for a firm grip, a 5-blade razor with a lubricating strip and trimmer blade, rich lathering shave gel with aloe to keep your skin hydrated, and a travel blade cover to keep your razor dry and easy to grab on the go. Go to harrys.com/bluewire to start shaving better today. Are you ready to get super sad?
Let me hold on a second. Let me get in position for this. Okay, I'm ready.
We're going to go through the injuries. I'm just going to rattle them off. We just talked about Zach Collins' shoulder injury. So that's like how far behind we kind of are. We haven't really done a news update in quite some time. So I'm just picking the most notable ones that have to do with mostly extended absences. The list is, you know what? It stings. That's all I'm going to say. So we'll start with De'Aaron Fox, grade 3 ankle sprain, going to be reevaluated in 3 to 4 weeks. I would almost bet my life savings that he's going to be out fairly longer than 3 to 4 weeks. Gordon Hayward, fractured left hand. He's going to miss about 6 weeks. Karis LeVert is the most recent one on this list, I believe. He had surgery to repair ligaments in his right thumb. The timetable is expected to be around 4 to 6 weeks for him as well. That's a dude that just can't catch a break, it seems.
Yeah.
Chris Middleton, left thigh contusion, expected to miss around 3 to 4 weeks for the Milwaukee Bucks. Eric Gordon, he finally lived, and then now he's going to be on the bench for about 6 weeks after right knee surgery or procedure to clean up his injury. Landry Shamet has a grade 2 ankle sprain. As the Athletics, Jovan Bova noted, butchered the pronunciation, I apologize for that. The average return time from that could be anywhere between 6 to 12 weeks. Otto Porter is still dealing with a left foot sprain. He does not have a timetable for return, but there is a chance by the time you listen to this that he has returned. Lonzo Ball has missed the past few games with an adductor injury. There hasn't been a clear timetable for his return. He's just basically game to game. The Raptors. Oh my God, the Raptors.
Yeah.
Serge Ibaka out indefinitely with a sprained right ankle. Lowry has a fractured thumb that was expected to keep him on the sidelines at least 2 weeks, and he's kind of reaching, I think we're more than halfway, or at least halfway into that prognosis now. And then you had OG Anunoby getting poked in the eye by Kawhi Leonard in the Raptors' loss to the Clippers. He, however, is expected to return on the day that you will be listening to this, which is Saturday. Finally, Clint Capella, maybe he will have played by the time you listen to this, but he's expected to miss Houston's Friday night game with concussion symptoms. Whew, I hope I didn't forget anything, but that was a mouthful. And so there are obviously other injuries teams are dealing with on the margins. Brandon Ingram's knee is banged up too. So there's injuries all over the place.
It seems like we get at least one a day at this point. New injury that's going to be, at least 3 or 4 weeks. It does seem like there's been an uptick in injuries in the first month or so of the season, as opposed to seasons in the past. Some of them are pretty significant.
Even Miles Turner's ankle injury, like now that's old. It's just like all these important players are missing real time.
We haven't even, because it's kind of old, we didn't even mention Stephen Curry. I mean, there's just tons of big name injuries all over the league. I was talking about the Raptors before we started recording. Shout out to Pascal Siakam. I mean, they're missing 3 very important players, and they just continue to chug along. And shout out to Fred VanVleet too, obviously. I mean, those two have been phenomenal in the absence of those other 3 guys that you mentioned, Lowry, Ibaka, and Anunoby. And even I was actually listening to the Howard Beck, Zach Lowe podcast on my way into the office today. And they were, Zach Lowe said, I run Siakam Island, or I can't remember how he put it, but I agree with him. He's been higher on Siakam than I think most people over the years. And he said, I didn't even expect this. The way that he's hitting these dribble pull-ups in people's faces, I mean, it's wild how much different he is now as opposed to even 2 years ago or even 1 year ago. He doesn't like. We think about really good NBA players as adding like subtle wrinkles to their game every summer. He's adding like drastic changes every summer. The big one for him this season is the above the break stuff. Like he's hitting jumpers from all over the floor, and he has this just he's got a confidence to him that it's really fun to watch. I mean, he is budding into a superstar in my eyes. I think he's got this is not saying anything that isn't obvious at this point, but he's got a good shot at all NBA. The other ones that you mentioned that I think are, real significant are Gordon Hayward in Boston. Although they've looked, I don't know how many games they've played without him, but they looked pretty good. Of course, they played the Wizards, so most teams are going to look pretty good against that defense. But Hayward was playing so well up until that injury, and I was kind of excited for him to have this bounce back season that he was having. He almost, in some ways, I think you could argue he was maybe their best player for the first few games of the season. He wasn't scoring as much as Kemba, but he was playing good defensively. He was rebounding. He was doing a little playmaking. Starting to see sort of that all-around game that he had in Utah. And then the De'Aaron Fox one is obviously huge. I mean, the Kings were already in, troubled waters before that. With the news that he's yeah, with the news that he's going to be out for, like you said, I think it's going to be a lot longer than 3 to 4 weeks. That's just a reevaluation date. That's another team that we looked at before the season as, hey, they might have a shot at the playoffs. We might be able to kiss those shots goodbye. This is not totally related, although it is, I think, partially. I before the season, I was thinking maybe there's 12 teams, maybe there's 13 teams in the West that you can make a reasonable argument can get into the playoffs. I think that has cleared up a lot quicker than I thought it would, and injuries have had something to do with that. I mean, it obviously eliminated the Warriors, although I don't think they would have made it even if Curry was healthy. And I think they may have eliminated the Kings too. So we're already seeing the playoff picture in the West a little bit clearer than we did before the season started.
Yeah, I would say that De'Aaron Fox's injury is the most gutting. I'm actually not too worried about the Gordon Hayward injury just because Boston has really good wing depth. He was playing well, but Jaylen Brown's been on one for most of the year, and I think you could argue that Jason Tatum can improve by way of shot selection just because he is hitting his threes. And so I know his true shooting dropped below 50 because of that 1 of 18 clunker he turned in. So, and Marcus Smart has been, look, Marcus Smart's 3-point shot, by the way, is a thing. People said maybe last year wasn't sustainable. Yep. He's third on the Celtics in 3-point attempts per 36 minutes, and he's shooting better than 37%.
I said for years, sorry to cut you off, but I said for years, if Marcus Smart was even an average shooter, he's like a top 50 player in the league, and he's been better than that the last 2 seasons. So I'm with you there.
Yeah, so the Kings, I think their season is over to me. They've won 4 of their last 5, including a win against Portland without De'Aaron Fox, and maybe that's what prompted the Blazers to really go after Melo too. So I just think I'm with you. That's the most gutting one to me. Middleton's big in Milwaukee, but they'll be able to navigate it. Your point about, and for the Kings, by the way, their point differential without De'Aaron Fox is actually better than their point differential with him, but their offense is noticeably worse. Like, it is bad. So That's going to be something to monitor as well. And then on the Siakam stuff, the above the break three thing, Zach Lowe noted it a couple days ago. I wrote something about it earlier on in the season, was interested to see whether it would hold, and it's clearly going to hold. And it's just like you said there, he's making these, he's like leaps every season. They're not these incremental improvements. He's just making leaps every season at this point. And this one's the hardest one to make because he's going from the most improved player now to, I would say, one of the 5 best MVP candidates right now. And what's interesting, this sample size is limited. He's played 326 possessions without Ibaka or Lowry on the floor. The Raptors are plus 13.5 points per 100 possessions during that time. So, and look, the thing that's great, Marc Gasol hasn't even played that well offensively this year yet. He shot okay from 3, and he's starting to make more of his shots, but he wasn't taking or making a ton before. There are these lineups. He's playing with Rondae HollisJefferson, who's, giving them good minutes, but it's Rondae HollisJefferson. I'm probably still scarred from the Brooklyn experience with him. You have Terrence Davis and Matt Thomas. Like, the lineups that Chris Boucher, like the lineups the Raptors are running out, and that they're competitive against the Lakers and the Clippers, and they're winning these games. It's Pascal Siakam's MVP case is writing itself right now.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That you mentioned Rondae HollisJefferson. He was another player that was has been fun to watch this week. And what makes that part interesting to me is those preseason comments from Nick Nurse. He just skewered Rondae HollisJefferson and Stanley Johnson. And I actually just found a stat on HollisJefferson last night. Like, in the past week, which is, the time that he's been in the rotation, he leads the league in deflections and loose balls recovered. And Nick Nurse's biggest criticism of him is that he doesn't play hard enough to be a Raptor, essentially. And so I think he took that to heart. The Raptors, I mean, we're kind of getting off injuries now, but the Raptors deserve so much credit. Are they kind of like the new Spurs? Like, they can just take anybody, plug them in, and get, contributions from them. It seems like they have just a fantastic scouting department, a fantastic development team. They're set up to be very good for a long time, and they have been very good for a long time. So maybe it's just now being recognized.
And so we had Haley O'Shaughnessy from The Ringer on our last podcast, and she noted that maybe Nick Nurse is kind of getting the reputation now as someone who can also extract more production out of guys who aren't traditionally great. And so, look, Rondae HollisJefferson is shooting 75% at the rim right now, and his career percentage at the rim is 58.1%. I need to see more. He hasn't even played in 5 games for the Raptors yet. But look, they're getting good minutes from him. They got good minutes from Chris Boucher on some nights. The Raptors are a fun watch. And right now, injuries have something to do with this, but no one's running away with the East. And I don't think, if they're healthy by the end of the year, as of right now, I don't think it's a stretch to say they have a chance to come out of the conference.
No, I now am at a point where I think all 4 of those teams at the top being in the finals would not surprise me. The Bucks, the Sixers, the Celtics, and the Raptors. I've seen very encouraging signs from all 4 of those teams, and some discouraging ones from the top 2, at least the ones that I thought would be top 2.
Are you ready to do some mailbag questions?
I am. These are going to be totally off the cuff for me, so have fun with that, listeners. At Couch Mamba. He says Luka's offensive numbers are insane. He seems to be getting some MVP talk. Should his current level of defensive play stop the chatter?
No. I don't like James
I don't think
Harden
he's been that
won
bad
MVP.
defensively before you take over. He's not like a lockdown defender, but I don't think it should preclude, like, it's not anything that should shut down the MVP talk. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, look, he's not a good defender. I don't know if he'll ever be a good defender, but he's averaging nearly a triple-double. He's not shooting his best from 3 yet, but his true shooting percentage is still above 60. Yeah. The numbers, we were talking about this before the podcast. In the macro, the Mavericks are getting killed when he shares the floor without Porzingis. They're getting killed when Porzingis plays without him. They are steamrolling opponents when Doncic plays without Kristaps. And the bigger concern for me might be, does Luka Doncic have the stamina to keep this up all year? It'll help if the Mavericks don't have like this huge midseason turnover trade like they did last year, but they're going to need more out of Kristaps Porzingis as an actual second option, because when he's sharing the floor with Doncic right now, it does kind of seem like he's floating around out there. And there are some times where he'll attack closeouts and stuff, but he's not the one who's setting ball screens, and there don't seem to be like a ton of plays where he's going start to finish. The defense, he's been fine around the rim, but he looks really uncomfortable in space. I thought he looked better in the preseason than he has now. He's coming back from an ACL injury, but I would be more concerned about Doncic not being able to keep up just this torrid pace because of how much he's doing. And at the same time, I'm not even overwhelmingly concerned about that.
Yeah, I'm not overwhelmingly concerned about it either. I don't think his ceiling and potential was ever based on defense, and you got to be better than like terrible to get by in the NBA. And I don't think he's been that. One thing that's been curious or interesting to me is how often he defends the other team's pure point guard, for lack of a better term. And he's obviously not going to be as quick laterally as most of those guys. But I think just the fact that he's huge for a point guard helps him there. He can take up space. He can make up some ground with that size. So I don't think he's a lost cause defensively, and I don't think it should impact his MVP chances. I think what impacts his MVP chances is the rest of the team. Dallas is probably going to finish, I would guess, in the mid 40s in wins, and I think the optimistic projection at this point would probably be like a 6th or 7th seed in the West, and that's just probably not going to be good enough to win MVP, especially with the other guys that are ahead of him right now. Like Giannis is going to have a stronger case. LeBron's going to have a stronger case. I could go down the MVP ladder. Luka will probably get some 5th place votes for MVP. Do they go to 5th place when they're voting MVP? I
think they go to 10, at least on the Basketball Reference ballot.
Okay. So he's going to get some votes. I don't think he'll finish close, but the fact that he's in the conversation already at age 20 is, it's wild. I thought he would be very, very good. I think you can vouch for me on that. I certainly wasn't out on a limb in thinking that Luka Doncic would be good. It wasn't an original point at the time. But I don't think anybody could have expected this by year 2. The guy is averaging about 30 points, 10 rebounds, and 9 assists. I ran his raw numbers through the Player Season Finder last night. The only guys who've ever done it are Oscar Robertson 3 times and Westbrook once. In Robertson's youngest season, he was 22. Luka is 20. I think there's some reason to think, well, they're playing in an era where offenses are just so centered around stars and the pace is up. So that's why we're seeing all these huge numbers the last couple of seasons. And I think there is some truth to that. But the fact that he's been able to do what he's doing is just it's phenomenal.
Oh, I'm 100% with you. Can I actually ask my own mailbag question now that has nothing to do with Luka Doncic?
Absolutely.
What did you think of Paul George's return to the lineup? That's something I meant to hit before we got into this. I wasn't watching it, but I looked at his box score at one point, and he had 26 points in under 17 minutes at the time. And he ended up with 33 points, 9 rebounds, and 4 assists. He was 10 of 17 from the floor, including 3 of 5 from 3. And he shot 10 free throws, too. He hit all of them. Just feel like we should just note that. The Clippers are going to end up being really scary. As you said, you were talking about Luka's dominance, and then it made me just think of what Paul George did in his first game back. And now I just feel like the Clippers, when Kawhi and Paul George get to play together, that's a team.
Absolutely. I actually didn't watch much of that game either, but 33 points in 24 minutes when you're coming off, double shoulder problems is certainly encouraging. You would think the thing that would take him some time to get used to is shooting again, because you need your shoulders to shoot a basketball.
Do you?
But he was phenomenal. Losing to the Pelicans isn't ideal, but like you said, Kawhi was out. They have this nice little luxury where they can just sort of alternate superstar players. If they're both ready and healthy for the playoffs, they're going to be a nightmare to face. He
also had 5 fouls and 5 turnovers in his first 17 minutes, and I thought that was kind of impressive too.
I didn't realize how much he did in those first 17 minutes. 5 fouls and 5 turnovers and all those points.
Just wild. I mean, they were missing Beverly and Leonard, and they lost to the Pelicans. But that as far as returns, like you said, from double shoulder surgeries go, that was pretty fantastic.
Yeah. Shout out to Derek Favors for going 20-20 in that game too.
Another guy who's been injured.
Yeah, he's had plenty of issues this season and prior to this season. At Needs More Input asks, why do so many diss the mid-range?
I mean, the only thing I'm going to say, because I'm almost tired of talking about this, is I did an entire podcast with Seth Partnow of The Athletic, and we talked about that extensively. And it can really be boiled down to the way he put it in his article and even on the podcast, is that the players who don't have as much control over the offense are now standing in smarter places around those stars. And the off-the-dribble, long 2, mid-range 2 is always going to be available for those star players. You do have to worry about shot quality, but then there's also always going to be guys like a healthy Kevin Durant where it's, fuck it, you can shoot whatever you want. That's just where I'm at with it. I don't know where you're at with it.
Um, I think if you're a superstar who's really, really good in the mid range, excuse me, go for it. I mean, if you're Kevin Durant, go for it. If you're Dirk Nowitzki, go for it. If you're Donovan Mitchell, he's shooting a ridiculous percentage from long two right now. Go for it. I don't know if his will hold, by the way.
It won't. But go on.
But a good percentage, like I don't even know what the average is right now. Maybe that's something that I will calculate one of these days. Let's just say the long two or the mid range, like average percentage is low 40s to mid 40s. You're looking at 0.9 points per shot. If you shoot 33%, which is below average from three, you're well above that. You're at about 1 point per shot. Just getting up threes is really important in today's NBA. And you can survive an off night shooting from three because, like I just said, being slightly below average is still being better than average or slightly above average from the mid range. So it's not that people diss the mid range. It's just a simple mathematical thing. Like if you're good enough to shoot 50 to 55% in there, have at it. But there's just so few of those guys. And if you have one, it's certainly a nice luxury because I think anytime you can soften up the defense in one spot or you can punish the defense in one spot, you can soften it up in another. So if a defense has to worry about a guy, getting loose in the mid range, maybe they fall asleep at the rim or at the 3-point line a little bit and you get some more shots there. There's kind of like a symbiotic thing happening with offenses. But if you're like, I think the ultimate example of this is DeMar DeRozan. He's known for his entire career as this great mid-range shooter, but he's just not really. I looked at the mid-range field goal percentage for him each year of his career the other day, and he's just using a ton of possessions at a below average level. And then you put the rest, you burden the rest of the team to make up for that hole that you're digging. He's an interesting case for a lot of reasons. Now, the last time I looked, he had only taken one 3-point attempt this entire season. I think he's still there.
I think he's up to 2. In his defense,
it's almost like Popovich and the Spurs and DeRozan are trying to like stick it to the general intelligentsia right now. Like, hey, we can be successful without doing these obvious things. And I think it's going to catch up to him this year. I thought it would catch up to him last year. It obviously didn't. The offense was somehow one of their strengths, despite a very bad shot profile in my eyes. I think it catches up to him this year just because I have to believe that the math wins out eventually in this particular, debate. But so I don't, again, I don't think I dislike the mid-range. In fact, I think it's pretty cool to watch somebody who can score from all three levels. I just think you got to leave that to the guys who are really, really good at it.
And that's the whole point of it is just, and you're not building offenses around that shot anymore, particularly when you look at catch and shoot off ball guys. You don't want them standing 17 or 18 feet away from the basket.
Yeah. It clogs up everything. There's a reason that the smart teams have guys space the floor like 5 or 6 feet outside the 3-point line.
And it's not, the teams are taking a ton of threes, but still the best shot in basketball is the uncontested dunk.
Yeah,
like that's what
the best shot in basketball is still at the rim or even a trip to the free throw line. I mean, that's the ultimate possession.
And it's easier to do that if the stars, the players who are on the ball, have more room to work. And by standing outside of mid-range and going beyond the arc, the players without the ball are helping them then increase those opportunities.
Yeah, there's a lot more to it than just where the shot is coming from. And you brought it up. Spacing is huge. There's all kinds of factors.
I called this on that podcast, like the disease of social media has kind of turned it into this needs to be a clear-cut issue, whereas there's definitely more nuance to that. And there's other directions to take the conversation, but people either want it to be the mid-range is dead or, casuals don't know what they're talking about when they say that the mid-range is a bad shot. There has to be like only two sides to the argument rather than like a happy medium or just like, again, like a nuanced discussion about it.
Yeah. The disease of social media. That's a good term. Jared Hedrick at JRDMH22. Does the hot start by Van Vliet, Boucher, Anunoby, and Siakam warrant the teardown of the Raptors and giving them the keys to the franchise?
Wait, what? He wants to tear down.
So I think what he's saying is, can maybe you trade Lowry at this point? But I think that was more likely if the Raptors weren't good. And I think this is still a nice thing to see if you're a Raptors fan or you're the Raptors front office. You can think, when Lowry and Gasol and those guys eventually do move on, we've got a solid core in place. It'll be really interesting to see what happens with Fred VanVleet this summer, what kind of money he's going to get. So I think there's some encouraging signs that, yes, we've got a core that can win even without Kyle Lowry. But I think for this season, like you said, it wouldn't be shocking if they made it back to the finals. So I think you got to keep everything intact.
Yeah, they'll have tough free agency decisions to make, but they neutered one of them by extending Kyle Lowry. I don't know that I would call Serge Ibaka or Marc Gasol essential to what they would do if they're trying to stay competitive next year. And I also don't know that the markets are going to be so strong such that they're going to command a ton of money that either wouldn't be movable or that the Raptors would be hesitant to pay. They have some tough decisions, but if you're playing like this, by the trade deadline still, and you're healthier, I don't know why you would even think about trading the veterans.
Yeah, I would be out on that right now too. At SoCal High, Nick Fernandez. He asks, are the Suns for real?
I think yes, but I don't know that I would pick them to make the playoffs. There are just, when you look at what they've done this season, though, I feel like there's not enough of, that's not sustainable going on with their team for us to now completely reject it. And so, yes, is Aaron Baines going to shoot a zillion % from three forever? Probably not. Is Kelly Oubre Jr. going to hit so many jumpers off the dribble? I would probably say no. But, Devin Booker is more efficient in a more manageable offensive role. That's not surprising. Ricky Rubio, his defense has aged pretty nicely, and he's brought some game managing to the offense. That's not a surprise. Tyler Johnson might be shooting slightly above his peak. Dario Saric, to me, has room to improve on the offensive end. Neither Mikal Bridges nor Cameron Johnson has been a pleasant surprise. They've both been disappointing. So look, and the fact that they're where they are now, they have a top 5 net rating against one of the harder schedules in the league. Mm-hmm. It's just, I don't know how unreal this could be. The West is a bloodbath. And so when you look at who's outside the playoff picture right now, San Antonio and Portland specifically, is it fair to have more faith in those teams turning it around to the point where maybe Phoenix is 9th or 10th? Yes. But you and I think did we pick the under for the Suns? Neither of us felt good about it, but we picked the under for the Suns.
Yeah.
And so they do. I would be, at this point, I think that we can comfortably say Phoenix is one of the 10 best teams in the Western Conference. And that's not like a pot shot at what they've done, because those 10 spots in the Western Conference are tough.
So I would have more faith in them making the playoffs than the Blazers or the Spurs at this point. So the answer to that question, obviously, for me is yes, I think they're for real. To what does that mean? I think they're in that mix of teams that are going to be 6 through 9 or 10 that are just going to be battling out for those last couple playoff spots all season. They're obviously not a legit contender or anything like that, but to go from where they've been for the last few years to this is certainly encouraging. I'm with everything that you said there. Did you say Cameron Johnson's been disappointing, though? I actually think he's been pretty good for them.
What was he shooting before? Wasn't it
he's shooting 42% from three, averaging 8 points in 16 minutes. I think he's been a nice little surprise. They've just got a lot of competent guys now, I think. And surrounding Devin Booker with competence, surprise, makes him look better. I guess there's the question of what happens when DeAndre Ayton comes back. I don't think it's as big a problem as maybe some people are thinking that it could be. Do you remember when there was talk of him maybe playing power forward before the season started?
I do.
I wonder if they're going to try that. And I hate to be like a full-fledged member of this new cult of Aaron Baines, but he's been phenomenal in that role. He's shooting 47% from three. He sets these ridiculous screens that free everybody up. I think he's been a really, really important part of their success to this point, and he had some success playing alongside Al Horford in Boston. And obviously, DeAndre Ayton is not Al Horford. There were reasons that jumbo front court worked that just aren't going to be present with Ayton and Baines. But when Ayton comes back, they've got to figure out a way to continue to play Baines, a good amount of minutes.
I am pretty much with everything you said right there. Didn't even realize Cam Johnson was shooting such a high clip from three either.
He's been solid. He was a guy that, I understood why people were kind of up in arms about that draft pick. It did seem like a reach, but from what I had seen, he was just such a ridiculous shooter. And I thought, in today's NBA, if you got a 6'8" guy that can shoot the lights out, there's a lot you can do with that. Let's see. I know that you don't love talking about officials, but I'm going to throw this one out there anyway. And maybe we'll just use it as a jumping off point for a different discussion. But Jared Cummings at J_D_Cummings asks, will Harden ever be officiated by the same rules as the other 400-plus players in the league? And that's obviously, kind of a hyperbolic way to ask the question. But I'm sure you have. Have you looked at James Harden's free throw rate this season?
Yes, I've seen James Harden's free throw rate, and it's roughly infinity.
15.3 free throw attempts per game. His previous career high was last season at 11. He's making 13.5 free throws per game. He's making 10.1 field goals per game. I agree with a lot of people that there's some skill and maybe a lot of skill.
There's a ton of skill in that. Are we really going to downplay what he's doing?
But you have to admit that there are tons of these calls where you're like, I didn't quite see the foul there. I don't know. I mean,
he's good at selling contact that isn't there, particularly when he's inside the arc. Yeah.
It's going to come down at some point. I don't know if you think it's a problem or anything like that. I just, what is your general takeaway of a player who's shooting 15 free throws a game?
Look, I don't think you watch the Rockets and think that they're highly entertaining all the time. And if you are just a, chopper in basketball fan, I can get why the aesthetics.
Rockets fans get so mad when people say that, by the way. They're not fun to watch.
I could get why some people don't see the aesthetics as enjoyable of their game. But James Harden is wildly talented. And I don't know if there was someone that I think could do what he does. I don't know that we could say he's being officiated differently. Then you look at even at his step back, like Luka has a step back, but it's just a little bit different because of like Harden is getting these guys to just lunge more, it seems like. And then again, he's good at really selling contact that isn't there at times in the lane. I don't think there's a bias towards James Harden on the officials' part. That I don't understand why there would be, what the incentive would be. I don't know what. If we're just looking at his free throw volume as proof, that just doesn't do it for me. It's absurdly high. His free throw attempt rate is, I think it was over 6.2 last time I looked. Yeah, it's 6.25 right now. That's incredibly high. I'm
always going to be one of those guys who thinks stars are officiated different than the average player because I just,
Yeah, but now we're journeying then into the territory that James Harden is being officiated differently than the average star.
Yeah. And I don't know. And when I watch him, there are so many calls where I'm like, what just happened?
The Rockets have no business being so comfortably above 500 when you look at that roster and some of the stuff that they've done.
Yeah.
The load he's carrying, however he's doing it, like the load he's carrying is obscenely impressive. So I don't.
It's huge. He also does get to take 15 breaks per game at the free throw line, so maybe he gets a breather there.
Can you guess what his season low is in free throw attempts in a single game?
What is season what?
Low. Season low.
Oh, jeez. I'm going to say 8.
11.
Oh, my gosh. So he hasn't had a single game with single-digit free throw attempts.
Nope.
Yikes.
And then over under the number of games where he's had more than 16 free throw attempts.
How many games have they played?
11. I'll set your over under at what's a good over under? I'll set it at 3.
I better just take the over on that.
Yeah, it was 4. I don't really know how I was going to trick you there, but
wow. Yeah, not my cup of tea. That's for sure. And I will forever, for the rest of my NBA fandom, be screaming at the TV when I do not see calls when I see calls that I do not like. Let's see here. Let's do a couple rapid fire here. This is from Artie, at Artie being Artie. Will Garland and Sexton work together long term?
I don't know. So that's a cop-out. I will say this. Collin Sexton, the three-point shooting, didn't have the greatest night against Miami in his last game, but his three-point shooting is for real. He's attempting to take more off-the-dribble threes, and they seem like they're close. They're a little bit short, and so I feel like he'll get there. When he attacks the rim, too, he's just a different offensive player. And then for Darius Garland, it seems like from the Cavs games I've seen, so Cleveland fans, please don't get mad. I'm also about to compliment him, so even if I'm wrong, maybe let it fly. It seems like he's getting a little bit more separation off the dribble, and my official prediction would be that there's a chance the Cavaliers are able to assemble an average defense around such a backcourt. Collin Sexton isn't big, but he gets into guys when he's on the ball. He did an okay job on Jimmy Butler for part of that Heat game where, again, the Cavaliers were destroyed. And then Darius Garland just gets his hand in places. And so I'm going to say that I am infinitely more optimistic about a Garland-Sexton backcourt than I was entering the season. And I don't know if that's kind of like an insult or flat out wrong, but that's just where I'm at. I've been beyond pleasantly surprised with what not that they've done together because the results aren't particularly great, but just with looking at Sexton offense, some of the stuff he's done on the ball and defense, and then Garland now kind of seems like he's starting to come along a little bit. And we have to remember, he play 4 games while he was at college, so his NBA career is now longer than his college career.
Yeah. I think they're probably a little too small for me to be real excited about their long-term prospects, but they do have some complementary skills.
Aren't you a fan of a team that starts Conley and Donovan Mitchell?
Yeah.
It's not the biggest backcourt.
Trust me, I have the same worries about them. So yeah, I guess there's reason for concern, but the Cavs in general, not just Garland and Sexton, have looked significantly better than I thought they would this season. Shout out to John Beilein for getting them to do some fun stuff.
If I told you the Cavs were about league average in defensive rating, am I lying or telling the truth?
I'm going to say you're telling the truth.
I am, and it's lower than it was before that loss to Miami because they got absolutely hammered. But shout out to John Beilein because that's not a team. Shout out to the team because you don't look at their personnel, and I want you to single out how many plus defenders you know that they have. To be outside the bottom 7 in defensive efficiency is a feat.
Wow.
A feat,
yeah.
Andy, a feat.
At LeBrooks James and
come on.
and at Benjamin Wirt, they both ask essentially the same thing. What do we think about Andrew Wiggins' hot start? And I think you probably know what I think about it because I was very tentatively and cautiously pounding that Andrew Wiggins drum before the season started.
Was it passionately? It felt like dispassionately.
I said tentatively.
Oh, tentatively. I thought you said passionately.
Yeah. If you can barely tap the drum, that's what I was doing.
If you could just hold the drum and hum, that's what Andy was doing.
Yeah, that's what I was doing.
I don't know what to think of it. He's hitting his threes both on the catch and off the dribble. He's shooting, this is an approximation, but roughly 1,000,000,000% on his floaters right now. I don't really know what, and his passing, I feel like they're really the first team to put, or the first version of this team to put him in a situation where he can dish out so many assists. I can't talk today. I'm coming down with a cold in case anybody can't hear it. I don't know what to think. I need to see more before I say it's sustainable, but you did say you still held out hope for him, and maybe just more inventive coaching, a little bit of role consistency, and then Minnesota shot pretty well from 3-point range this year. Having that extra space in theory could end up being good for him. I hope it works out for him. And almost 40% of his plays are coming out of the pick and roll now. That's a change for him. His previous career high I think, was barely over 25. I'm actually wrong there. 2016, 2017, 32.1% of his plays came out of the pick and roll. But the things we're seeing now, it's unprecedented pick and roll volume for him, and the passing has really started to come.
Yeah. That's the reason I think it's sustainable, is because the biggest differences are all things that are coaching changes. He's running more out of the pick and roll. He's eliminating a lot of the long twos. He's being put in the role of a playmaker more often than he ever has before. So I think all of those things together make me I just think it's sustainable. I don't know if he's going to maintain quite this level of play, but I think it's clear that he's better than he has been in years past. He's not just like an empty calories scorer anymore, and that's cool. I think the Timberwolves are another team that they're more in the playoff mix than I thought they were coming into the season. The Timberwolves and the Suns are the two teams. I kind of like checking the 538 playoff odds pretty regularly to see what the statistics say the playoff standings are going to end up being. And the last three seeds in the West right now are the Mavericks, the Suns, and the Timberwolves. I don't know if that'll hold. I could easily see the Suns and the Timberwolves coming back down to earth at some point this season, but I think it's cool that both of those teams have exceeded expectations to this point. So
another interesting wrinkle, Timberwolves have been almost dead even in the minutes that Andrew Wiggins has played without Karl Anthony Towns.
Oh, that's big. I would not have guessed
almost dead even, still in that negative. Just want to stress that.
All right, is there anything else you wanted to hit before we sign off?
No, not unless there's anything that you wanted to hit. Shout out to Carmelo Anthony for winning his first ever MVP in the future. So congratulations to him.
Yeah, if he pulls the Blazers out of whatever tailspin they're in right now, I'll throw him in the conversation. We hit a lot on this episode. Carmelo Anthony, a bunch of injuries, a bunch of your mailbag questions. If you want to, hit us up on Twitter, as Dan provided those handles at the beginning. I'm at Andrew D. Bailey. He's at Dan Favale, Favale. The show is at Hardwood Knocks. The podcast network is at Blue Wire Pods. The sponsor is at NBA_math. As always, we encourage you to rate, review, and subscribe to the show. If you've already done that, make sure your friends, family, random people you run into on the street do that as well. And until next time, we leave you with the shout out to Benno Udry. There's a shirt that commemorates that, by the way. Go to Blue Wire Pods merch, buy it, and a shout out to Kyle Anderson.